things that you mentioned in your keynote speech was about, as one of the pros of sort of joining a firm, is that they are essentially a meritocracy. I'm not sure that all people would agree with that about city law firms. Is there anything you would like to sort of expand on that perhaps a bit more?
No, I believe it very firmly. I think it's city law firms are often described as elitist, which is frankly a cliche. They're not elitist, save in the sense that they simply want the very, very best people they can find. One of the good things that has happened in the last 5 to 10 years is that because of the way that universities are now organising themselves in this country, where political forces are meaning that you don't always find the very best, the very cleverest people at 1 or 2 or 3 universities. Law firms are now casting their net far, far wider. And that's a very, very good thing, because it means that those who come from less advantaged backgrounds have an equal chance of being seen. And law firms are doing this for 2 reasons. One, because it's good, it's the right thing to do. But second, it's in their own interests. Because all they're interested in is getting the very best people, and they don't care where they come from. And they know that nowadays they will come from a wider variety of sources than was the case, say, when I was applying 30 years ago. So no, I'll defend the statement. They're very meritocratic places for as long as you want. They are.
Working in the city as a lawyer, it's challenging, it's interesting work. Clearly it's reasonably kind of remunerative as well. I think the people you work with tend to be interesting, bright people. And one thing about being a lawyer in a commercial environment, which I think is often not properly understood, is it's not an impersonal profession, in the sense that the clients you're dealing with, all of their, usually big corporations, big financial institutions, you get to know the people within the organisations, very well. So they're in-house lawyers that I've known for many years, and indeed, who become personal friends. My honest view is to not worry so much about it. I mean, the first thing is that downturns do come along from time to time, and obviously the younger you are, the more concerning a downturn is, because you've got less perspective. You've never seen a downturn or a recession before. I've worked through, this is about my third, downturn that I've sort of experienced. This was a particularly bad downturn. Clearly, it was it's quite scary when it was at its worst, when Lehman Bank collapsed. What else was going to happen after that? And just one thing about that is that kind of really big downturn is probably a once-in-a-lifetime event. So for people entering the profession today, it may well be that they will never experience anything quite as bad as what happened around 2008, 2009. So law firms are pretty robust organisations. I think they'll continue to prosper and continue to grow, and I would encourage people to think about law as a profession.
Yes, were there any sort of questions that particularly stood out from any of the students?
There was a couple of questions about work-life balance. I think that's always quite a hot topic, particularly with the number of females coming into the profession. They're always very keen to know, is it possible to combine a legal career at a city firm with being a mother? So that was quite a strong theme.
As a lawyer and a mother, how have you found that? Does that require a lot of juggling? Are there particular...
Yeah, I'm an expert juggler. And I said to the audience today that there are 3 things. You need very good organisation, you need to be very flexible, and you need a good support network.
Okay.
All key if you're going to make it work.
Yes. And what about being a woman in the legal profession? Is that something that, do you think that's getting easier? Are there particular hurdles that you've got to overcome, or...?
I think it is getting easier. I think there's a growing desire in the profession to attract more women, not only attract them, but to keep them in the profession for the long term, because so many, up until now, they've tended to leave at some point between qualification and partnership. I think there's a big drive to attract women now and keep them, so that we see an increasing percentage of women becoming partners.
Yeah, corporate lawyer in the city? What is it that you enjoy the most, and perhaps what's the most challenging aspect of it?
What I enjoy the most is the excitement.
Mm-hmm.
I love the transactional side and doing the deals, and there's nothing gives me greater pleasure than completing a deal where both sides have got what they want and everybody's happy. The biggest challenge, I suppose, that there are a couple of things. There's the whole challenge of it being quite pressurised and making it work with family life. That's been a big challenge for me over the years, and increasingly I suppose the urgency of the work. Modern technology has made my life easier because I've been able to work more flexibly. But the downside is that people expect an instant response.
Yes.
You have a phone call and say, "Oh, have you read the email I've just sent you?" They just expect you to be sitting there waiting for the email to come in and you to answer it immediately, when of course you've got a number of competing priorities every day.
Sure. I suppose it's also that knowledge now that with the technology, they know that even if you're on holiday or if you're at home, you're still accessing it. So there's this bit of an assumption that you are on call the whole time.
Yeah. You're always obtainable.
Yes. the best part of being a city lawyer.
City lawyer. Well, I've been thinking about this over the years. I have to say, I think it's the colleagues that I've worked with, and there's been a real sort of nucleus of people who have been with me, if you like, for the last 25 years, and we've grown up together. Other people have joined us from time to time and sort of come into that nucleus, but it's just been a tremendous atmosphere, both intellectually and in all sorts of other ways to have worked in. And I think it's something that I would very much miss, if you like, if I were out on my own and not in that sort of collegiate atmosphere.
Did you think there were any particularly interesting questions that came out of that panel discussion?
Yeah, there was definitely a sense that people wanted to know about the diversity and how easy it is to find a balance between home life and working within the city.
And for you particularly, what was it that drew you to becoming an in-house lawyer? What was it that attracted you about that particular way of professional life?
For me, it was the variety, the being so close to the business and the business decisions, working alongside and being part of the business.
Okay, it takes different kind of skills to work in-house than it does to work within a firm.
Yes, definitely. You need to have a broader range of softer skills, communication skills, being comfortable communicating, for example, using PowerPoint. You have to, quite early in your career, learn management skills, managing teams, leading teams. You have to be confident, sometimes flying by the seat of your pants in terms of and having confidence in your answers and in the advice that you're giving. Project management skills, ability to find your way around the numbers that the business is producing. Yeah.
My name is Carol Moore. My last job in law was Head of Legal for Europe at UBS Investment Bank. I was there for about 15 years in various roles. And before that, I did my training contract at Clifford Chance and stayed there till I was 1 year qualified.
Okay, so thanks for talking to us. Obviously, you had quite a broad experience of the legal profession. What would you say were the biggest differences between practicing privately and as an in-house lawyer at UBS?
I think, like I said in the session, I enjoyed being a trainee at Clifford Chance and I qualified into banking, which I was interested in. Then they sent me on to comment to the investment bank. It was like somebody switched a light on. It was just good fun for me, a variety of different types of people, not just lawyers, much more quick-fire stuff. You send most of the drafting to the law firms, which was good because it got rid of the bit I didn't like. Lots of giving advice, dealing with some quite feisty personalities in the bank. When you have to deal with the trading floor, you have to be quite tough.
I imagine you'd have to be. You mentioned long hours in the city.
Yeah.
Was that still a problem, or, still a part of your working life as an in-house lawyer?
It's the same.
So it carries over?
It's the same. Investment bankers are expected to be on call all the time to their clients on their Blackberries, on the phone. So you're expected to do the same thing, just like the law firms. Your hours happen at different times. So like the gentleman from the Boston Consulting Group said, you negotiate, then you give it to outside counsel to draft. So they might be up all that night, but you might have been up all night with the committee in the bank approving it, or sometimes we had to stay up with the bankers and the clients. Wow. It's just different nights, different people for different evenings.
Would you specifically recommend in-house work to any aspiring lawyers who might be watching this?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I loved it. I'd had enough by the end, but I loved it. It's exciting. I mean, I went for transactional based work because that's what I like. But I really enjoy it. You know your one client that you work for very, very well because you're in there, you know them, you're next to them, and you get to work with all of their clients as well. So it's really interesting, and it's another way of having a career.
Oh, well, great. Well, thanks for talking to us. That's a really interesting insight into in-house work. Thank you.
My name's Cliff Louis. I'm a partner at the law firm Lewis Silkin, and I'm a member of its media, brands and technology team, and I specialise in digital media.
Yours is a very interesting practice area, probably something that's probably quite attractive to the student generation.
It is and it isn't. I mean, I think that as far as most practice areas goes, it's seen as a bit niche and a bit strange. And you know, when you're a law graduate, I certainly have no idea that digital media lawyers existed. And you seem to think it's about M&A, corporate transactions. So, you know, in many ways, people have no idea what it is. But I'd like to think that those with the sort of bit of curiosity have had their minds blown a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Lewis Silkin itself is perhaps one of the smaller firms here today. Are there advantages to being at a smaller firm but still within the city?
Definitely. I mean, you know, it's something that's always been an issue for law graduates, is that they think that the rankings for the top 200 is somehow to do with quality. Or actually, it's genuinely just how many lawyers they have and what the turnover is. So the analogy I sometimes use is that, you know, the world's biggest newspaper is not necessarily the best. So we very much focus on our clients. We're very sector specific. There are many, many things that we don't do, but there are many, many things we do. And our clients are from the FTSE 1 down. We have some of the world's biggest companies, often globally, on issues that we are the very best at.
Interesting. On a personal basis, what's the best bit about being a city lawyer for you? What do you enjoy day to day?
Well, I'm a slightly strange creature because I spent most of my sort of associate years in-house. But having come back as a partner, it's been fantastic to be able to act for lots and lots of companies who, some are household names, some are companies you will never hear about, but actually helping them out on their business issues. That's what I think the law firm in the future is going to need to be you know, sort of focused on. Is not necessarily dispensing law or marking up documents. It's providing business solutions in a legal context.
It is that sort of, well, I suppose it's the great commercial awareness phrase, but also that client focus thing is becoming much more important, isn't it? Learning
Totally.
Yeah.
In a world where every client walks into your building with a phone that can access the same piece of legislation that you can, who often themselves are legally trained because they're heads of legal or general counsel. The question I have for most law firms is, so what are you selling?
Yeah.
It's got to be something else.
Sure.
But many lawyers still think our role is to mark up documents and tell them the law. I don't agree.
No.
That's going to be an area of growth.
For sure. Do you think there were any themes emerging as sort of perhaps among the questions that were being asked? Do you think there are things that students are particularly concerned about or interested in?
I think there has been a concern about, you know, the fact that we're in a rather poor economy, and, you know, jobs generally are a big issue. I think that today the firms have managed to communicate that there are still opportunities. They learned the lesson from the last recession when training contract opportunities were really cut back, and that left a hole, sort of generational hole, which, as I can't remember which speaker it was now, but one of them talked about, I think it was Paul Randall in our CityLawLIVE session, he talked about how that hole sort of then progressed up through the firms. So I think the firms are mindful of that this time round. So that was good to hear.
And finally, do you have one top tip for, you know, potential for students who want to become a city lawyer? What can they be doing to kind of really stand out?
I think that they need to show that they're serious about this career choice. And I think that the advice the law firm as a business panel gave this morning about, you know, making sure that you can see things from the perspective of the professionals. Now, I know that you know, that's a big ask when you're still a student. But this is what you are aspiring to become, and I think that you need to try and educate yourself into the ways that lawyers think. Risk management seemed to come up quite a lot, and I know there were questions about how do you read business press. I think the answer, or one of the answers from today, seems to be look for where the risks lie in a particular business scenario, and just have a little think about, you know, what the implications are for the businesses involved, and maybe how the lawyers might become involved in that element, in that risk management, or even sort of damage limitation. You know.